Hey there, welcome back to the course. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can push a view controller onto a UI navigation stack. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about in the somewhat completed version of this app, okay? So when I select one of these cells, it pushes this table view controller onto the UI navigation stack. So that's what you're going to be able to do by the end of this video. You're basically going to get this transition effect and have this title kind of animate up to the top like that, okay? Up to there. You'll see it animates into a button. Okay, so you're going to be able to do that by the end of this video. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and get started by basically going into our application here and opening our side panel with our file structure here. And you'll see we have our app delegate, our folders controller and such. Let's go ahead and let's create a group and let's call this controllers. Let's drag our folders controller in there. And then now we have this folder with our folders controller in there, okay? So we need to introduce another controller into our application to get that controller to present when we click on one of these cells, right? So let's go ahead and let's create a file in the controllers directory here. And this is gonna be a Swift file. And I'm just gonna call this folder notes controller.swift. I'm gonna hit create. And then in this file, we want to import UIKit, not Foundation. And then we want to create a class called folder notes controller, which is also going to be a subclass of UI table view controller. We'll then implement the viewDidLoad method that we always use inside of view controller subclasses. And then we'll say super.viewDidLoad to call the parent viewDidLoad method, okay, inside of UI view controller. All right, so we're set up there. Let's go ahead and let's push this onto the stack now. But before we do that, let's just give it a title. Let's say self.navigation item. Title is equal to, and we'll say folder notes, right? And we'll change that to be custom to the cell later on. Okay, let's go to folders controller and let's go up to our extension here. And we need to implement a method called didSelectRow at index path. So we'll start typing didSelectRow at index path, and you'll see there's two methods, and that might be confusing. You might think it's an error by Xcode, but it's actually not. The reason there's two is because one of them comes with override and then the other one does not come with override, okay? And since we are using a controller, we have to override it, okay? So say override func table view and then this method, right? So in here, we need to instantiate the view controller. So we'll say let folder notes controller, and we will use a lowercase f. So we'll say let folder notes controller is equal to folder notes controller like that. We will then basically just push it onto the stack by saying navigation item, navigation controller dot push view controller. And then we're going to hit return and we're just going to say folder notes controller animated true. Okay. So make sure there's a question mark there because in some cases you might not have a navigation controller, but since we set it up with a navigation controller inside of the app delegate, we know that it's a navigation controller. So that question mark you can just ignore. Okay, and then make sure we don't use the class name here. Make sure we use the instance we made above it. So with the lowercase f. Okay, so go ahead and get that in, those two lines, and let's recompile our application. And let's head over to the app once it's done building, and I will show you what exactly this does. Okay, so it's loaded. Let's select a row and you'll see it pushes a new UI table view controller onto the screen and the title animates up into that button. And it really is looking like a nice little iOS app here, okay? So before I end the video, let's just go ahead and change this background color in the folders controller to .white so that it matches the other controller. Let's rebuild our application. And once we have that working and confirmed, we will head on to the next video. Okay, so it's booting up and we have our folders. Let's select a note folder and it pushes us to our folder notes for that cell, okay? So that's it for this video. I hope you learned something. Get ready to learn more and we will start in the very next video. See you in just a second.